Welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast, where we explore the strategies and best practices that drive business success. I'm Rachel Cook, COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our podcast, along with members of our executive team. In each episode, we'll dive into the latest trends, insights, and real-world examples from some of the most exciting leaders from organizations worldwide. Be part of our journey and learn from the best as we discuss innovative approaches and cutting-edge technologies for talent management, learning and development, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast. I'm Claude Werder, Senior VP and Principal Analyst at Brandon Hall Group. And our topic today is a really important one, I think, AI coaching and how it empowers frontline managers to lead high-performing teams. I'm recording from South Florida today, and our guest is Rimon, founder and CEO of Centrical, a leading performance experience platform for frontline teams. And Gal's speaking to us today from Israel. We're really fortunate at Brandon Hall Group to have the pleasure of working with Centrical. We co-produced a webinar in May on optimizing frontline training for performance and retention. And I thought talking to Gal about AI coaching was a really good way to continue that dialogue and provide our members and followers some perspective on what I think is going to be an important evolution of AI coaching. So Gal founded Centrical in 2013 with the vision of helping companies empower their employees' performance, making them the center of business success. Before that, he was CEO of Gillan Synergy Business Insight, a national leader in business intelligence. So, Gal, welcome to the podcast. Let's dig right into it. Centrical leverages AI to eliminate the administrative burden of coaching, and it also empowers frontline managers to drive more impact and enable their frontline teams to thrive. So that seems like a good place to start. You've mentioned in the past that managers report saving up to 10 hours per week with your AI solutions. So I'm interested in what specific tasks you're saying that is consuming so much of their time, and how does that impact their ability to actually coach their teams?
Yeah, so I believe that managers, frontline managers, were the best agent or the best seller, and then they got promoted to become a team leader and a manager. And when it was more working together as a team, they usually spend more time with the people, like if it's on the store or in a contact center environment. Today, many are actually working remotely and not always together with their teams. And I started to see over the last few years, more and more managers spend more time with analytics, with reports, even listening to conversations or filling forms instead of spending time with their employees, where I believe the change started, of course, in 2020. And what we need to do is to help the managers to reduce the time that they spend with reports, analyzing data, finding who should they help to and on what, and digest everything around that, provide the relevant triggers, help Corey on improving conversion rate. And the reasoning behind the conversion rate gap would be because of opening conversation skills, and then spend more time with him, help him be more creative, be more empathetic over just, I call it data mice that bring data.
Yeah, that's been a challenge for years, right? I mean, we in our work with leaders talk all the time about you have to free yourself up from the make work and the administrative work to really pay attention to your people. So AI seems like a perfect tool to really make that happen, because most organizations haven't been able to make it happen on their own. Let's move on to another topic here. Your background is in business intelligence, of course, but Centrical emerged in some degree by recognizing that BI informed business leaders about employee performance, but didn't always have the actionable guidance for improvement. So how does AI coaching bridge that gap between knowing there is a problem and knowing what to do about it?
Yeah, so if I go backward to my background, so for at least a couple of decades, it helped me and the companies that I led, including a big data company, and before that, Deloitte, EDS, and other companies, always trying to help the managers to bridge the gap between strategy to execution. And we use the AI to put a spotlight where the gaps are. my frustration was that we couldn't bridge the gap. We couldn't move the needle, and we were very dependent on the managers to make decisions, to take actions after we put the spotlight where the problems are. And I started to coin a term: the data with no action is like business gossip. Because who cares, right? So it's red. This KPI is on red. The thesis was, let's flip the pyramid. Let's put the employee actually at the center. Let's motivate them to change their behaviors. Let's focus them and align them and train them, and then there will be a better version of themselves. Like in sports, and it really worked very well. And the next step for Centrical was actually to go, and if we flip the pyramid and put the employee at the center, now let's help the frontline manager to become a better version of themselves. So, of course, there are the skills of the managers, how to provide feedback, how to help people, and so on. But I'm talking on more than that. When we are talking about AI coaching and quality management and things like that, we try first to identify the opportunities for improvement with the employees, try guiding them by ourselves, like using AI, and escalate when the involvement of a manager will contribute to this process with human skills, with high EQ, with more creativity, with breaking the molds. Like we are creating molds based on AI. I expect the managers to break those molds and to actually teach the AI new tricks.
That kind of brings me to personalization. When I talk to people about any type of AI use, it's often, well, what about the human connection? What about the personalization? So contact centers, frontline operations often manage hundreds or even thousands of employees. So how does the AI coaching platform deliver, truly personalized coaching recommendations, while maintaining consistency across managers who may have very different coaching styles and experience levels?
When we started at Centrical, we looked at a different world, like the customer centricity and marketing automation domains, in order to learn how to motivate people to change their behaviors. And in this front, like marketing, you're using a lot of segmentations, like using the term segmentation, people that are in different age groups and different behaviors. And it evolved from, let's call it the demographics, to the behaviors. What type of books do you read, over if you're young or a young adult or a kid or an older person, right? Because maybe you like Harry Potter, and it doesn't matter your age. So the first, I call it the first generation of Centrical, utilized segmentation in a rule-based approach. So we help the admins and the managers to identify what are their main segments, like new hires in the first 3 months, people that drop their performance by 10%, and things like that. And then to provide to them the next best action together with the motivation to do that. Like, let's say that we identified that you drop performance by 10%. We would like to put you in a challenge or a campaign that will help you to improve that. So this was the first generation. The second generation started to look at the next best action in a more personalized way, with using, let's call it, a more traditional AI, data AI, like algorithms that helped us to identify the root cause behaviors and other people that you can learn from them, and so on. In the last 2.5 years, we received a gift. Generative AI helped us to get, call it like a painter, like a new set of color, like a new palette of colors. If we were in black and white, now we have all the rainbow colors, and we know better how to create this root cause analysis. For example, if a person drop his performance on a conversion rate, we can identify, using a lot of data together with generative AI, whether it came from the beginning of the conversation, objection handling, or are you familiar better with the product? Let's say that it was asking more discovery questions. Okay. Now I know how to improve that in a more personalized success plan. Okay. So no longer the next best action, but actually a longer success plan that will help them to improve step by step the skills that will guide them to behaviors, that will guide them to leading indicators, that will eventually bring them to better lagging indicators that are actually closing more deals, upsell, resolution rate, FCR, and the results.
So by having that different palette, you're getting different shades of the individual, and you can get a better understanding of what they really need and personalize that for each person.
Right. My goal, like I always tell to our customers, your goal should be a segment of one.
Right. Hey, along those same lines, you've noted a lot of companies are in remote work environments now, and frontline managers, a lot of them aren't seeing their employees as they struggle as they did when teams work together in the same place, or maybe they're working with some in person and others on teams or whatever. How has AI coaching evolved to address the unique challenges of managing distributed frontline teams?
Yeah. So when you look at an organization perspective, like I'm kind of calling and raise on the segmentation and personalization, right? Because when you're looking at a centralized organization, you have one playbook or one set of playbooks. And in a way, you think that one size fits all. I believe that definitely post COVID, right? That you have more distributed teams, you have more outsourcing, you have both like BPOs working with many customers, customers working with many BPOs, different teams within the same customer, like collection and fraud and service and so on. The best way is to start creating a culture of content and process democratization. Like the best people to develop new type of playbooks of reactions would be the frontline managers, sometimes together with their employees, sometimes together with the DevOps. Now, when it's centrical, right? When we're adopting the AI solutions at Centrical, my first approach was let's do a hackathon. People start using it, and then let's use it as I call it as a zoo. No rules. You can use Claude. I can use ChatGPT, and so on. We can develop everything that we want. And then the third stage was okay. Let's bring this ideation stage to a place that we consolidate and learn and create something that the knowledge goes up and down again to different places. And I think this is the best way. Help the managers, the frontline managers, to be more creative. Let's help them to create their playbooks, of course, to have all the knowledge, the know-how from the organization, but to invent new type of tricks, tips, playbooks. Then the organization should learn from them. And definitely, if it worked well, let's distribute it across others. And today it's easier because before that, because of our dependency on structured data, every content should be structured with taxonomy and so on. It was so hard. Today it's much easier to say, hey, who did this and managed to succeed on this KPI and that proficiency and this case, and then let's distribute it among others.
So if I'm getting this, the playbooks really allow managers to pivot from situation to situation depending who they're dealing with, and going back to the personalization, it allows personalization but also adjust for the work environments. Is that right?
Yeah, and even more than that, when you look at a manager, right, and you would like that 10-20% will go and will be promoted, maybe to operations, maybe to other roles. This is the best way to find the best talent because they're in your organization, but usually you will recruit other people from different organizations, but you already have them in the organization. Now, everyone knows that the next best manager or supervisor will be one of your top two agents. But I see it. By the way, I see it also with my employees that the next person for a product was someone from customer success that truly started to look in a systematic way with like 5, 10 of his customers and create a system. This is the best person to go to product. Same thing here.
Great. Let's switch gears for a minute to measurement and ROI. I'm a leadership coach as well as an analyst. And so I've worked with a lot of different organizations, a lot of different leaders. And I know firsthand that traditional coaching often lacks clear metrics for success. So I'm curious about how your platform helps organizations measure the actual impact of the coaching and what data points prove most valuable for demonstrating ROI.
Yeah. So I have a few layers of answer to this question. First, I was a volleyball coach, right? So I remember what I did as a coach. I told you, hey, like this, the ball, through the ball. If you spiked well, great. Usually you didn't. You jumped too early or too late. If it was too early, I had the playbook of too early, right? If not, if it was too late, I had the playbook and the drills to help you to jump later. And it's complicated and it takes, sometimes weeks to fix a single problem. Now, I think that we are sometimes confusing between learning, training, and coaching, because when you're actually utilizing, applying your know-how or knowledge, then this is the best time for coaching. You can learn by yourself using microlearning and adaptive learning. The coaching comes when I'm starting to watch you, whether it's AI coaching or human-to-human coaching. I'm watching you at work, or even simulate things and then watch you at work. So I think this is very important to understand when we're talking about coaching. And therefore, once we try to analyze the return on investment, whether it's higher revenue or profitability or lower cost or efficiency improvement, faster onboarding, retention, initially what we try to do is to forecast what, forecast who would be the next person to retire, what would be the best way to create faster onboarding path, or who would be the best one to improve their performance. Now, when you start to add the manager or the supervisor to this loop, you put in front of them recommendations. And then you think that your recommendation would be positive or not. You can measure the return on investment based on the recommendation, whether it was impactful or not. We learned something very funny. This is an anecdote, that even if a manager just moved the mouse, like did a mouse hover on the recommendation and did nothing, didn't, commit this action or send this recommendation to the employee, or actually from our perspective, our system, they didn't do nothing, didn't do anything. There was an improvement. Because probably, again, this is a guess, right? They did something elsewhere. So what we try to do is to create a link, a closed feedback loop between recommendation, action, change in behavior of the employee, and a result. Because it can fall between the recommendation and the action, like the manager recommended something or created a coaching activity, but the employee didn't do anything. So where the problem is, right? The problem is in the engagement part. And then you need to fix it differently than if they did it and it didn't work or didn't improve. And then maybe the recommendation wasn't the right one. And then you need to fix the recommendation. And then you start creating this feedback loops and improve every part of whether the recommendations, the follow-up, the engagement parts. And the last thing that it was the first thing that we learned, but the last thing that we implemented with the AI coaching was to work on the engagement part of the employees. So we started Centrical with engagement, performance management, and learning, and only then added the coaching part. But we learned from our customers that they had practices of coaching for decades, that they had so many recommendations, so many coaching actions, and the utilization was so low, like 5%, 10%, usually not more than 20%. So you made a decision, you took an action as a manager, and only 10 or 20% of your actions or decisions were actually utilized. So once you flip the pyramid, you increase it to 40, 60, 80%, and then the algorithms start to work. But it's like the yin and yang. It's the engagement, the motivation of the employee to make a change, the empathy, the connection, the human interaction of the manager, the EQ, and then you can put the AI as part of truly optimization of data.
Specifically address what the issue is. Great. Well, we've been talking fairly generically and about the employee and the leader and manager. And I know you serve diverse industries from financial services to retail to BPOs. How does the AI coaching adapt to unique performance challenges and even cultural nuances across the various frontline environments?
I think that it's a great question, and it will become more and more important in the AI era, because today you have a culture of no specific bank, a country, a department, maybe fraud and collection are behaving differently, and service and sales, right? So you have microcultures in the organization. And the first thing that you need to do is to define the behaviors that supports the culture, or that are derived from the culture. But I think that basically when you identify the culture of the organization or the values of the organization, I think culture and values are very, very close to each other. Basically, you read what you already did. If you're Disney, right, there was a culture. Whatever Walt Disney did, right, there was a culture, and then you can write it down to a set of values and then set of behaviors. And then once you meet a kid in the park, amusement park, as an employee, you know how to act. And then you're actually embedding the culture and create also the culture for the next employee, right? That will see you. Okay. The same thing here. So what we did in one example is like taking the behaviors that are derived from the cultures and the values. For example, at Centrical, one of them was customer success comes first. And to create a token of appreciation, we called it a kudos. And once I see you succeeding somewhere, right, instead of saying, hey, great work, Claude, and you did well, I'm saying, okay, this is the set of values, and say, thank you for putting the customer first and improving their success, and everyone in the company will see that, and it would be repeating and repeating and repeating on the same thing, and then you foster the cultural aspects utilizing behaviors. So with AI, I think that there would be so many shifts where there would be new jobs and new roles, and departments will shrink and grow, and different departments will grow, and you will need to move people from one department to the other, maybe even one country to the other, maybe bring outsourcing or insourcing, right? But still, you will need to keep this culture. So I don't want to say, like financial services is like this and telco is like that, but I'm saying that you need to identify the culture, you need to describe it utilizing values and behaviors, and then appreciate everything that is being done with these tokens, and then you create again a feedback.
Yeah, I really like that. And in essence, the cultural nuances that you're talking about and addressing the culture kind of cuts across the industries. And there may be some differences, but there also may be some similarities, and getting to the culture gets at the heart of things. So we're quite a few minutes into the conversation. We haven't mentioned AI agents yet, so we should probably dig into that. We believe through our research that AI agents are going to transform much of HR in the next few years. In fact, we're going to host an agentic AI summit for HR leaders in October in Florida. So this is a hot topic. Centrical recently announced agentic AI innovations designed to help organizations turn insights into, orchestrated, integrated actions. So how does this evolution, what does it mean for the role of frontline managers in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So what we did was actually to identify what are the things, right, that will help the manager to be better at their job. One was to identify performance gaps. Second one was, based on that, let's bring a relevant playbook. Who are the best performers that I need to recognize and publicly, reward them, and so on and so on. So we started with creating AI agents or in an agentic approach. And then the question was like how to orchestrate everything. So we created like a router, right, that handles this conversation and create a real AI assistant approach between the manager and the AI agent. So basically, instead of going to one place to ask about the data and the other place to ask about the knowledge base and another place to ask about the playbooks, everything was orchestrated together and connected, and also bidirectional. So it could be passive, so waiting for a request, or active, like, hey, Monday morning, I reminding you that this is the time to talk with Jane because of this and that. The last thing that we added was actually to connect Centrical to we call it third parties. Maybe they will call us third parties, right? AI agents. For example, if let's take a scenario, Corey has a challenge with conversion rate. We identified that the reason for that was because of not asking enough discovery questions, so he doesn't understand the customer needs, right? And then based on the playbook, one of them will say, okay, the best way is to connect him with the best performer for a shadow call. So I click on that and see that Ali is doing great. And I'm sending Ali kudos. Hey, Ali, great work. You're doing great. Okay. Can you please help Corey? And then I'm connecting them. When I'm connecting them, I'm actually talking with an AI agent of Microsoft, the calendar, right? So the new MCP, model context protocol, right, started to bring us the keys like APIs with data, bring us with AI agents. So I'm operating with the Centrical agents, but then I can interact with third-party agents and create a single experience and transparent experience.
That's really cool.
And so this is like one aspect. Another aspect where I think it's super cool, and I still, to be candid, didn't understand the full potential of it. So we took Centrical. We covered Centrical with a layer of MCP, like think of an API that you can ask any question with SQL, right? Or a call, a put or get on API. Here, I can use Claude, not you, but the other Claude or ChatGPT, and say, hey, Centrical, why did which region was the best on the new product? Say the North region. Why? Because of this and that. So, whoa, okay. What are the playbooks that they're using? Okay, now compile to me a new playbook, implement it to the regions that didn't succeed, and it works. And I think this is, again, I'm on one hand, I'm humble, right? Because I'm not sure that I understand the full potential of this openness. On the other hand, whenever I show this to customers, I have an idea. Say, yeah, it's you can do it. So I think we're in an era that the imagination is our limit.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. We're going to have to wrap up. Is there anything I didn't ask you want to maybe touch on before as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think that if I'm let's call it a human being, right? I want to say a manager. How should I behave, right? And by the way, as a CEO, as a founder, I spend a lot of time in planes and airports, so I have a lot of time to think, and I always go back to what should I do differently. And my recommendation to the supervisors, right, is first, learn twice as what you learned before. Spend twice the time that you learned before, even only to keep up. If you can, do it 3 times more. Okay. I double or tripled my learning time over the week. 2, experiment and take risks. Okay. I remember when I started MVP, minimal viable product, was a very strong term. And last month I heard someone say scale is overrated. And we always wanted to, MVP and go and scale. With the technology that we have today, the reason why I think scale is overrated in many cases is that once you finish this MVP, there is already new technology. There is already something that maybe will solve the scale that you wanted to put in the design. Start with the design thinking, solve the problem. Don't think about, okay, what will I do with 10,000 employees? Do it with 100 employees, with 10, with 1. Once you succeed, sometimes you have new technology that will take you to the next step of scale. So be brave, don't afraid to fail, and keep learning.
Great advice. Great way to close out. Thank you very much, Gal, for taking the time today. I think we've, beyond learning a little bit more about the product and AI coaching, I think the philosophy that you're using and the way you go about things and your thoughts on leadership are helpful for people. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Claude. And as you know, you understand, you are my second favorite Claude.
I get that a lot. Usually they call me Claude Human so that we don't get confused with the AI.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Gal, again. And we'll see you on the next episode of Excellence at Work podcast. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.